Yeah, good evening. Good evening to all the members. Today, we are on our 117th webinar and we have a star speaker for this day, Mr. P.G. Chacko, who was member judicial in the Chennai bench of the SISTAT somewhere between 2003 to 2008. And during this glorious period, even though he was a terror to all the people who are appearing before him, once we understand his way of approach, definitely everybody will be in a position to get what they want from him. He is a person who will spend a lot of time in hearing the matter, on facts, on law, and finally he will dictate the orders, even pronouncing a comma, a semicolon, dash, everything he will say while dictating the orders. Even in the fair copy of the order, you will find that he would have made some small corrections in the draft. So that is his meticulousness. And we have also been we all have been very fortunate to start our practice when he was the judge. And based on the foundation set by him, we were able to succeed in the profession in a great way. And whatever we are today, we are thankful to him, like people like me. So with this, now I request Mr. T. Ramesh to kindly propose the formal welcome address for this session.
Yes. Good evening, friends. On behalf of MTB, Madras Tax Bar, I have an immense pleasure in welcoming Honorable Member Retired Mr. P.G. Chacko for this wonderful session of webinar. And it is an opportunity for us to re-establish our connection in olden days. We had a great time appearing before him, and the way he was conducting the court was phenomenal one. One of the instances where his order was tested before the Honorable High Court, and one of the members, the tax bench was asking Mr. Raviraj Pandan was asking to the department counsel whether you want me to interfere in this wonderfully written judgment. That was the comment or question asked posed before the standing counsel for the department. That is the standard with which he was conducting himself, and I was also talking in praise of him before his lordships. And we had a wonderful time, and he is a taskmaster where you used to tell in front of everyone that if they have not come prepared, openly will tell that come prepared, you are not prepared well. He wanted to have a thorough job or thorough work. That is what his caliber, and once again I welcome sir, and over to you sir.
And also, without regard to the provisions of the Municipal Corporations Act, in fact, it was a judgment passed by the Supreme Court earlier, taking a compassionate view in favor of the street vendors. So, in the later case, the Honorable Supreme Court considered the judgment, the earlier judgment of the High Court and the Supreme Court as having passed sub silence. Then many decisions, English decisions also were considered by the Honorable Supreme Court in taking this view. And the Honorable Supreme Court also referred to legal treatises on this particular point. It referred to Halsbury's Laws of England to discuss per inquirium and sub silentio. The Honorable Supreme Court referred to Salmond on jurisprudence. Salmond said precedence and precedence sub silentio and without argument are of no moment. This rule has ever since been followed. One of the chief reasons for the doctrine of precedence is that a matter that has once been fully argued and decided should not be allowed to be reopened. The weight accorded to dicta varies with the type of dictum. Mere casual expressions carry no weight at all. Not every passing expression of a judge, however eminent, can be treated as an ex cathedra statement having the weight of authority. Thus, in this judgment, with regard to obiter also, there are observations in this judgment. What kind of statements can be said to be obiter dicta? Pronouncements of law which are not part of the ratio decidendi are classed as obiter dicta, and they are not authoritative. With all respect to the learned judge who passed the order in Jamnada's case and the learned judge who agreed with him, we cannot consider that this court is bound to follow it. It was delivered without argument, without reference to the relevant provisions of the Act, and without any citation of authority. Therefore, we do not propose to uphold the decision of the High Court, because it seems to us that it is wrong in principle and cannot be justified by the terms of the relevant provisions. A decision should be treated as given per inquirium when it is given in ignorance of the terms of a statute or of a rule having the force of a statute. Thus, all these features of various decisions which are in the nature of exceptions to Article 141 of the Constitution were discussed in this landmark case of Delhi Municipal Corporation. Now, we have to come to a situation where a judgment, when can a judgment be considered to have passed the sub silentio, where the point in issue was not argued or considered by the court? A decision on the point passed the sub silentio. In fact, in the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, also this point has been clearly mentioned. This was taken from Salmon's jurisprudence. There are a series of judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court where earlier decisions of the court were considered as having been passed the sub silentio. One example is State of UP versus Jeet Bisht, 2007 6 SEC 586. And this decision has considered many other decisions, including the Delhi Municipal Corporation case. A decision rendered without any discussion on facts and law. One example is the case of DJ Malpani versus CCE. There is a rather comparatively recent case, 2019 9 SCC 120, 487. In this case, an earlier 2018 judgment of the Supreme Court was considered to have passed the sub silentio. And that earlier decision was rendered in CC versus Panchamukhi Engineering Works, 2018 11 SEC 791. So this is a case where a decision rendered without any discussion on facts and law was considered to have passed the sub silentio in a later case considered by the Supreme Court. Now, there is an important decision. It is rather an old decision, 1991. State of UP versus Synthetics and Chemicals Limited, 1991 4 SEC 139. A decision which is not express and not founded on reasons and does not proceed on consideration of issue cannot be deemed to be a law declared to have binding effect as is contemplated by Article 141. So, Article 141 says the law declared by the Supreme Court. When is a law declared by the Supreme Court, in a decision passed or rendered sub silentio, we cannot say that a law was declared. Per inquirium, we cannot say the law was declared by the Supreme Court in that case. And if a decision is rendered by a court following an obiter dictum contained in a judgment of a higher court, then that decision of the lower court also cannot be considered to be a declaration of law. So now there may be cases where under Article 142 of the Constitution, which gives the Supreme Court the power to pass any decree or order in a given case or matter for the purpose of doing complete justice to the parties. For that purpose, the court may be passing orders in a pending case. And such orders passed under Article 142 of the Constitution cannot be considered to be a law or declaration of law under Article 141. This view was taken in the case of State of UP versus Synthetic and Chemicals Limited, which I have already referred to. Now, as far as per inquirium doctrine is concerned, there is a very classic matter on the central excise side, a decision which was rendered by the Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Allied Photographics India Limited. Most of you are aware of this case. CC versus Allied Photographs India Limited. It was a judgment dated 18/3/2004. It was rendered by a bench of 3 judges. I'm sorry, I don't have the citation with me. It was passed in Civil Appeal number 2687 of 2001. Now, this three-judge bench was confronted with a conflict of decisions between, it was rather not a conflict of decisions. We can say it was a case of judgments passed by 3-judge benches, coordinate benches, in an inconsistent manner. One of the earlier judgments of the 3-judge bench was in the case of Singhai Synthetics and Chemicals Private Limited versus CCE. It was a decision of 2002 143 ELT 17 SC. In that case, the 3-judge bench held that unjust enrichment was not applicable to a claim for refund of duty paid under protest. And for taking this view, the bench relied on para 104 of the constitution bench of the Supreme Court, a bench of 9 judges in the case of Mafatilal Industries Limited. So relying on para 104 of Mahatilal Industries, the 3-judge bench in Sinkai Synthetics held unjust enrichment was not applicable to a claim for refund of duty paid under protest. Now, another coordinate bench, 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court in CC Chennai versus TVS Suzuki Limited, 2003 156 CLT 161. Again, relying on para 104 of Mahatilal Industries. This bench held that the refund consequent upon finalization of provisional assessment did not attract the bar of unjust enrichment. Later, and this decision in TVS Suzuki was rendered in 2003. And in Sinkai Synthetics, it was rendered in 2000. Coordinate benches of 3 judges each. Subsequently, a bench of 2 judges of the Supreme Court found inconsistency between the above 2 decisions. And the 2-judge bench referred the issue to a larger bench in the case of Allied Photographics India Limited. And the larger bench in Civil Appeal number 2687 of 2001 passed its verdict in favor of TVS Suzuki and holding that the decision in Sinkai Synthetics was given per inquiry. The reasons were stated for holding Sinkai Synthetics per inquiry. Number 1, in Sinkai Synthetics case, the bench relied on para 104 of the Constitution Bench decision in Mahatilal Industries. But that para was not applicable to the facts of Sinkai Synthetics. Because in the Honorable Supreme Court found that in para 104 of Mahatilal Industries, there was nothing to suggest that payment of duty under protest does not attract the bar of unjust enrichment. There was no such observation, even remotely, in para 104 of Mahatilal Industries. And but in Sinkai Synthetics, it was this para 104 of Mahatilal which was relied on for taking the view that a refund claim was not hit by the bar of unjust enrichment when the duty was paid under protest. There was nothing in para 104 of Mahatilal Industries to support this view. So that was one reason why Sinkai Synthetics was held to have been given per inquiry. A second reason, the Sinkai Synthetics decision was also based on the concession by Department's counsel that unjust enrichment was not applicable to the case. So therefore, for these 2 decisions, first of all, the Sinkai Synthetics did not understand or did not consider the ratio decidendi of the Constitution Bench decision in Mahatilal, without taking into account the correct ruling of the Constitution Bench in Sinkai Synthetics. The Supreme Court 3 judges bench rendered a decision in favor of the associate. Secondly, there was a concession by the Department's counsel in Sinkai Synthetics case. So therefore, applying the various rulings of the Supreme Court already established the larger bench, in fact, the larger bench was also a bench of 3 judges, which was coordinated to the other 2 benches, which passed the inconsistent orders in Shinkai Synthetics and TVS Suzuki. So the bench of 3 judges in Allied Photographics Limited propounded the doctrine of per inquirium and took a view by holding that Shinkai Synthetics was given, the decision in Shinkai Synthetics was given per inquirium. So this is perhaps one decision which can be considered as a classic example of a case in the which came up in the recent past, in which per inquirium doctrine was propounded in detail. Now, as far as now we can in this discussion we can come across a situation where even when a 3-judge bench decision is found to be per inquirium by a 2-judge bench, even that was also okayed by the Supreme Court in a later case. And this happened in the case of MST Karmi versus Ammu, 1972-4 SEC 86. This was a judgment by 3 judges of the Supreme Court. It was held to be per inquirium by a bench of 2 judges in 1991-4 SEC 312. And the bench held it is a short judgment without adverting to any provisions of the Act, without mentioning any argument in this regard, and without any mention of the earlier decision in Bhartri Prasad versus Kanso Devi. The decision in MST Karmi cannot be considered as an authority on the ambit and scope of Section 14, 1 and 2 of the Act, which was considered in that case. Now, all of us have come across cases where there may be conflicting decisions by coordinate benches of the Supreme Court. Then one may rely on the later one among them. This was one of the practices, maybe one of the judicial practices. But in a case, the Honorable Supreme Court has taken the view that where there is a conflict between 2 or more coordinate benches of the Supreme Court, it is not necessary to rely on the latest one among them. That is not necessary. What is to be done by the bench which has found a conflict is that whichever decision is correct in law in its view should be followed. So therefore, maybe in this area, there is a vague, not very clear, there is a vague confusion. The confusion is, first of all, where there are conflicting decisions of coordinate benches of the Supreme Court, the lower courts or tribunals will rely on the later decision of the Supreme Court. So it considers the later decision as a judicial precedent. That is one situation. Another situation is where there are conflicting decisions by coordinate benches of the Supreme Court. Yet another coordinate bench of the Supreme Court or a bench of the High Court will have a doubt which one to be followed. So the Supreme Court now says that it is not necessary to follow the later view or the later decision. It will be better to take the correct view, find out which decision of the Supreme Court is not a judicial precedent because of per inquirium or sub silentio. So the reason may be found out. That means the facts of the cases must be understood in depth, and it should be identified which of the decisions is per inquirium or sub silentio, and which decision is a binding judicial precedent. And therefore, in a later case or in a future case, the binding precedent should be found out from amongst the earlier cases, and then that should be applied, irrespective of the structure of the benches. So these are the views taken by the Honorable Supreme Court in relation to judicial precedents. And actually, while discussing this area involving several conflicting judgments of coordinate benches or coaxial benches of the Supreme Court or any High Court, I was just thinking about what Bernard Shaw said. Bernard Shaw once said about the golden rule. The golden rule is that there are no golden rules. This was Bernard Shaw's comment. In fact, when we are confronted by conflicting decisions, some of them per injuria, some of them sub silentio, some of them obiter dicta, then we are confused. So it's a task to find out the ratio decidendum in every case. So a few judgments are placed before the court or the tribunal. Judgments passed by coordinate benches of the Supreme Court, placed before the High Court or another bench of the Supreme Court or before the tribunal. Then it is the task of the High Court or the tribunal, as the case may be, to delve deep into the facts of the case, facts of each case, and to find out in which case a judicial precedent is forthcoming. If a decision has been rendered in a particular case, after considering the settled set of facts carefully, and after applying the statutory provisions carefully, and after considering the submissions of both sides, and then that is a decision which can be followed as a judicial precedent, because that decision contains a ratio decidendum. But in another case, you read the facts, read the provisions of law relevant, and consider the submissions of the various parties to the case. Then, if you find that in the ultimate judgment passed by the Supreme Court, either a previous judicial authority has not been considered, or a decision which was itself per inquirium was considered, or the relevant provisions of law were not considered, or a certain obiter dictum was followed, then such a decision is definitely not a judicial precedent to be followed in the future by the courts or tribunals. This is all what I would like to discuss as far as judicial precedents are concerned. Thank you for bearing with me.
Sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for that guided tour on the labyrinthine, labyrinthine legal provisions and judgments. You have explained all principles like ratio decidendi, stare decisis, and all. You have taken us through various judgments. And today we have participants from across the country, from many places. Yes. One of the distinguished participants today we have, who used to appear before you regularly on the department side. You will be surprised to know we have Madam Bhagya Devi, who is now Commissioner in Mysore, and she is attending. May I request Madam to kindly join and share her thoughts about the program. Madam, she had some connectivity issues. I think now it is sorted out. Madam, you are able to hear us? I will unmute you. I will unmute you. You can unmute yourself now, Madam.
Bhagya Devi safe? Oh, but she's anti-prop.
I think she is not able to join. Any other members? I'll just try her. Any other members who would like to raise any questions or would like to have an interaction on this particular topic? Any other members? AP Srinivas, can you please join? Today we had a lot of audio issues. I received many messages in the chat box saying that some of the people were not able to hear it. Yeah, Krishnanand, can I call upon Krishnanand?
Yeah.
Can you join? Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Sir, you have to unmute, sir. You have to unmute.
Yeah.
Yes. Welcome, Mr. Krishnanand.
Thank you. Welcome. How are you, sir?
Fine. How are you?
I am fine, sir.
You are in Delhi now, no?
Pardon?
Are you in Delhi now? Delhi?
No, I'm in Chennai now.
Oh, I see.
I'm surprised the topic that you chose for yourself today.
Huh?
Because I have appeared before you umpteen number of times. And you're one person who has never followed any of the topics that you spoke on today. Ask us to only on facts and take decision only on facts. Judicial precedents come much later whenever a person is arguing before you.
Yes.
Before you, what is important is the facts of the case and what is the client's case. Yes. No judgments or anything is looked into prior into going into the facts of the case, yes, which is, according to me, the right way of passing a judgment. But yes, I was surprised of you choosing this particular topic. What did you do? Choose this particular topic is my question.
Because I deliberately did it. I had many other options connected with my area. But then because you have, this is the 117th webinar now, you have covered many of the topics. And if I take some of those topics, which are commonplace topics, then it will be a very boring kind of repetition also. So I thought, let me drift in the wilderness in search of some general proposition of law.
most of the other listeners don't know this particular fact of yours, that you basically go on facts. You want to first understand the facts before you actually want to look into any decision at all. In fact, yes, most of the orders passed by you rarely have decisions quoted before you. They're all on first principles. And which is the right way to decide a case.
Yes.
But as lawyers, we try to hoodwink the bench by quoting judgments, saying that these are in my favor, the issue is settled in my
Yes,
favor,
yes.
things like that. Of
Yes.
course, with a stalwart like Mrs. Bhagya Devi, you always had a good fight.
Sure, sure. Where is she? She will join.
She is having some problem, some audio problem she is having.
Oh, I see, I see.
She may not be. Just to supplement to what Krishnanand said, once,
Yes.
Chaco, sir, you were told in the court, I don't know whether you remember or not, you said, first case, and then law, and finally you tell the case law. This is one very famous quote which I still remember. First you state the case, your facts. Then you say what is the position of law. And I will apply the law to the case, and finally we will come to the case law, which is still in my memory.
Was it me?
Yes,
I think so. Yes.
Because usually when you said this, I immediately recollected Mr. Veerayan. He used to say like this. So that was my confusion.
Maybe, I think it is.
Anyway, when you refer to case law, see, I was actually thinking, I shudder to think whether the expression usually used by the bar, many members of the bar, is case laws. So, case law, that's quite correct. But case laws, that is not a correct way of expressing. Because if you say case law, then you are toppling all these principles which I advocated to now. Because there cannot be case laws. A case law is, by its very nature, a decision or view taken on a settled set of facts. It is a decision on a given question of law. It is case law only. There cannot be different case laws. Different case laws means they are conflicting. You will have to find out. It is a task for you. This was my point.
Yeah, thank you. So quite a few people have raised their hands to put forward the question. May I now request to Mr. V.S. Jayakumar, one of the senior members from our bar. Sir, Jayakumar, sir.
Yeah, I had appeared before you several years ago.
Right.
Quite a lot from you.
Right.
Also thought the plural of case law is only case law.
Right.
And you elucidated that aspect of that. So I have a very fundamental. If in a judgment of the Supreme Court, an example is given to arrive at a particular reason,
Yes.
that example is ratio, vicinity, obiter. Let me give an example. Justice Krishna Iyer says, the blood bank selling blood
Yes.
is considered a business.
Yes.
And at the same time, he says, if the blood bank gives blood free, then it is not business. This example, he relies on to give a reason. This example, is it obiter or is it ratio? That is my question.
Now, if it is a statement which is extraneous to the principal issue considered by the court, if it is this particular observation which the honorable judge was making in that case, is it going into reckoning in deciding the issue before him? That is the prime question. There are many statements. For example, there are some English decisions also. There are decisions by our Supreme Court also, where there are some passing observations made by the court. Maybe the observation may be connected with the views taken by the court on the issue. But without those observations also, the issue could have been decided. If that is the case, the observation made is a surplus. And an observation or statement made, which is not necessary to take a view on the question of law considered by the court. Such an observation or statement should be set apart as an obiter dictum. In fact, the obiter dictum may be useful in a future case. In a future case, that may be relevant. And then
that is what I'm asking. Correct.
Yes. Then we can say it is a persuasive precedent. It is not a binding precedent in the earlier case. In the earlier case, it was an obiter dictum, but in a future later case, then the obiter dictum of the previous case becomes a persuasive precedent.
For example, he says, let's get on to the boxing. So what does it mean? Is it just a statement or
Which one?
Start a tax case. He says, let us get on to the boxing ring.
Boxing, I see.
So is it a binding precedent, obiter dicta, or a sub silentio or observation?
No, I don't understand the correct. Which case you are referring to?
No, income tax case.
Okay.
He says there's a dispute between the settlement commission and the client.
Yes.
I mean, department. He says before going into the dispute, let's get into the boxing ring.
Oh, I see.
So that is a casual statement, but it will be useful for me to argue somewhere else.
But then, in somewhere else, if it is useful to you, then it is a persuasive precedent for you.
Exactly.
But otherwise, I would not have done like that. Had I been the income tax tribunal, I would not have done it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now I call upon Mr. Gokarnasan. You can unmute yourself and you can raise your query, sir.
Good evening, sir. There is no query here, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir. Proceed.
Oh, okay.
Sir, there is no question from my side. I just want to add Mr. Natarajan and Mr. Krishnanand's view. I appeared one case before you, sir. That case is on Mysore calcites and chemicals.
Yes.
You can show your video, sir. You can switch on your camera so that.
Yes. One minute, sir.
So what?
One minute, sir. I will switch on my.
See, I am very illiterate in these things.
No. You are going on facts. That I want to supplement it. You are going by facts rather than the case law first. The decision given by you in my case, Mysore calcites and chemicals, is purely on facts because the case is already lost by limitation. I have not appealed before the saturated period of time limitation, but because of the lot of hello.
Yes, proceed, sir. Proceed.
Hello.
Proceed, sir.
I can hear.
Mr. Gokarnasan, you can proceed. We are able to hear you.
Because yes. So the party was under liquidation, and there was a demand of some crores, and the department passed the order without giving a proper proper time for hearing. And finally, the show cause notice itself, they say you are allowed to appear before 7 days. Especially, he is also fixed on 7th day. A lot of loss on these proceedings. So you took all the facts into consideration and decide. There was an undue caretaker department. So I allow the appeal, and the matter may please be remanded back for a fresh consideration, sir. This is a very good example of this. Going by the facts of the case rather than going by the other aspects, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
No, facts are actually facts. They are very crucial in judicial pronouncements. One should understand the facts carefully. Sometimes the facts may be simple, sometimes the facts may be complicated. But when the facts are complicated, then also the judge will have to take the pains to understand the facts carefully. Once the facts are understood carefully, then only you can locate the law which is applicable. That is the position.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Any other person? I find only Satish Sundar has raised his hand. So I request now Satish Sundar to share his thoughts and also propose the vote of thanks so that we can end the session with that.
I think before
yes, sir.
Maithili wanted to ask something.
Yeah. Maithili, madam.
Yes.
Nataraj, I also want to have some clarification on the Dalite photograph.
Okay, okay. Now
Okay,
we'll start.
okay.
We'll start with the Maithili. Maithili, madam. Maithili, madam.
No, we can't hear you.
You will not be able to hear.
I cannot hear.
Yeah, Ramesh, maybe you can proceed. By the time she will just come back.
Sir, good evening, sir. It was a wonderful exposition in various legal principles. Thanks for that. Sir, regarding that allied photography, there is a conflicting decision between Syncoy Synthetics and TVS Motor, TVS One Electronics.
Yes, yes.
In that it was referred to the larger bench. The question was whether when the duty was paid under protest, whether the unjust enrichment is applicable or not. It was decided. It was referred to the larger bench. While deciding that, the Associate Council was referring to national winders.
Yes.
Which said that the protest lodged by the manufacturer can be extended to the buyer also, and there will not be a limitation under Section 11B.
Okay.
During that, he was quoting this decision, and on that context, it was said that it is per incuriam. The national per incuriam, because it did not consider about the unjust applicability of unjust.
Yes.
And it was held that the decision of national vendors also was held to be per incuriam.
Yes.
Then your sir was deciding that and held in one of my matters in Western Coalfield and other matters, where since the allied photographic is held to be at per incuriam, I am following the allied photography, and appeal was dismissed. That protest lodged by the manufacturer cannot be extended to the buyer as well. Then the Supreme Court, in one of the matters, it was dismissed following the allied photographies, and subsequently it was reviewed. I appeared for Western Coalfield, and it was restored. Earlier dismissal was also restored in the Supreme Court.
No, one second. The review against the larger bench decision in allied photographics?
No. Reviewing of dismissal of another matter of involving the same national winders.
Oh, I see.
Then it came up last year for final hearing, and I argued the matters, and allied photography is not applicable, and national winders is still a good law.
Yes.
But unfortunately, these were not considered by the Supreme Court. And I also asked for the refer to the larger bench to consider whether the protest lodged by the manufacturer can be extended to the buyer. Because that was not the issue before the allied photography.
Yes.
And it is, I said it is the obiter dicta with regard to holding that national winders with regard as a per incuriam is only to consider this aspect of maybe per incuriam with regard to considering the unjust enrichment aspect, not with regard to the limitation aspect.
But that subtle distinction was not given by the court.
Yes, and now I have filed a review again in that matter, because while after receiving the order, it was not considered. My points were not considered. It was well taken during the arguments, but it was not considered and followed the allied photograph. I have filed now the review, and it is pending in back of.
You mean to say that the observation made by the larger bench in allied photographics about national winders decision. Yes. You mean to say that that is also per incuriam?
They said as a per incuriam. They said
okay.
Yeah, they categorically said it is a per incuriam.
They said it is per incuriam. Yes. Now you mean to say that allied photographic larger bench is per incuriam regarding national winders.
National winders. I was telling that the holding that national winders are per incuriam is obiter dicta, because that the issue involved in the allied photography is entirely different.
Okay.
And and per incuriam only with regard to that issue involved in national winders. Allied photographies.
Yes.
And it is still a good law.
You mean to say that on one issue it is not per incuriam?
Yes, it is not per incuriam. That is what I. Yeah.
That is what you wanted to say.
Yes, I wanted to tell, and it was well taken during the final hearing, but not reflected in the order. Now again, I filed a review, and it is pending.
The review against allied photographics.
Following the allied photographic.
Okay. Right.
Madam Maithili, madam, you are able to join now. Maithili?
No, I can't hear Maithili.
Yeah, she is unmuted only, but I don't know. We are not able to hear her. Madam, I'm muting you. Once again, you can unmute yourself and try. Yeah. No, we are not able to hear you. We are not able to see you also.
No, I can see her.
I can see her,
Oh,
but
oh,
I can't
okay.
hear.
Now, Mr. Swaminathan, he has raised his hand. Sir, Swaminathan, sir. And to mention, the Swaminathan has been selected as a member of IT80, but the formal orders are yet to be issued. And maybe he may seek some professional advice from you.
Exactly, sir.
Okay. I
Sir,
see.
in fact, my doubt here, sir, is, see, if the tribunal has taken a view in assessee's own case, one view was taken in the tribunal by the previous year by a bench. For the subsequent assessment years, the bench, different bench find that that view is wrong. Whether it has to refer it to a larger bench or can it take a change of view, what should be done, sir?
This is your main income tax case now?
Anything,
So,
even in a sestat or in income tax or whatever.
Okay, then certainly if one bench of the tribunal, it is entitled to take a view that a decision of another bench is not correct, of course, for valid reasons. It is entitled. If that is the case, the option available to you in law is to refer the issue to a larger bench.
Larger bench.
Just refer the issue to the president of the tribunal.
President of the tribunal, so that he can.
He will constitute a larger bench. That is the
That is
the procedure.
procedure.
No doubt.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Madam, final call to Madam Maithili. You are able to join?
Now she has disappeared.
Okay.
She's not seen also.
Last 1 hour or 1.5 hour, there was nothing per incurium. It was full of ratio decidendi, and there is a lot of things which we take it as your president. That was the takeaway from the session. Now I request Satish Sundar to come forward and have his,
Now
He has come back. Maithili has come back.
yeah, madam.
She can't hear.
Maithili, we are not able to hear.
She is also not hearing us. I think so.
He is hearing. We are not able to.
Okay.
Okay, Satish, over to you.
Natarajan, Satish, 1 minute. Natarajan, one incident.
Yes.
Mr. Chako, you had rendered a decision in the case of Jimpex, where I had appeared along with Mr. Vikram Nankani.
Yes.
Whether you remember that particular case or not.
It was Bombay or Bangalore?
Bangalore.
Okay.
In that particular case, we came to your court almost 25 times. Mr. Nankani used to come from Bombay 25 times. Satish and I used to come from Chennai 25 times. We will sit the whole day in the court. The matter will never reach.
I see.
So one day you decided that today we will take up this case. And suddenly at 4 o'clock, you said, I'm discharging the board, I'm taking up this case. And it started pouring so heavily that Nankani said, I will argue only on the merits of the case, because he had argued the identical issue before 2 high courts, one before the Bombay High Court and one before the Delhi High Court.
Yes.
And won both the cases. Now he finished and he said, Krishnanand will continue the rest of the arguments of the merits of the case. So when you were sitting there, you said, I will post it after 2 days. Come back after 2 days, I'll post only this case in the afternoon and you will hear only this case. So when I came after 2 days, I started off by saying, just to refresh your lordship's memory, I would recall what Mr. Nankani said. The immediate retort from you was, our memory is not so poor. We remember what I argued 2 days back. Your arguments on merits of the case.
Yes.
Ultimately, the order came in my favor. You distinguished both the High Court judgments and gave an order on merits on the question of limitation and allowed the appeal.
Okay, on limitation, not on merits.
No, on merits also.
I see.
You're sitting with Mr. Veerayan. Why
I
I'm
see.
say this is that you appeared to always to be very stern inside the court hall, but you had a very soft heart inside you. You might shout, you might shout at the lawyer. In fact, I was one of the recipients of your bombardment in one particular case.
You are on the receiving end.
I'm receiving the particular case.
Yes,
So the
yes.
next day I tried to behave very innocent, and the moment I started behaving very innocent and apologizing, you said, what happened yesterday is over. Today is a new day. You argue
Yes.
your case normally. Don't
Yes.
try to be submissive.
Yes.
See, this is what encouraged us. In fact, Satish and I can never forget the times we spent in your court hall.
Yes.
Now Satish will second me when he's going to end this meeting.
Yeah. Yes, Satish, over to you.
Yes, sir. Sir, first of all, thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation and making it to our webinar.
Oh, thank you.
In fact, you had said that I made a request about 2 months back. You had not responded, and then you had given me a message day before yesterday saying that I should not become time barred. You are never time barred. You are a vintage, as I always say to my friends in the stat bar.
Yes.
This was we really had glorious period when you were a member here, and we had the pleasure of arguing before you. And you always used to say, please present the facts first, then give us the provision of the law, and then go to the precedents. And
Yes.
that is what has kept us in good stead in our practices.
Yes.
Now, as far as precedents are concerned, I think they are useful for one reason. When we read those precedents, we
Yes.
find how the argument has been placed. Maybe ultimately that might have been rejected at the hands of the court or before the tribunal or wherever it is.
Yes.
But how the arguments were placed and what was the that always inspires us. Especially when we read Supreme Court judgments in which great scholars like Mr. Nariman or Jatmalani or so many people appear, they have various ways of putting things across.
Yes, yes, yes.
And that is why my senior Mr. Kumar always used to say that you read the precedents and keep a record of it. I
Yes.
till date, Lord, I have always kept a authority notebook where I note all the case laws, judicial precedents and other things so that it can be referred to at a later point of time.
Yes.
So thank you very much, sir. It was really a good experience with you.
Oh, thank you.
And we would also like you to participate in more of our webinars and give us some very interesting presentations. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much,
Satish.
sir.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
All of you will be missing in the pandemic season. Stay safe. Chennai is, how is Chennai now?
Improving.
But improving.
Okay, very good. Okay, let me leave now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. We
Thank
can-
you, sir. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all.
Thank you so much.
so much, sir.
Thanks a lot. Now, I think Maithili is voiceless still.
She has sent a chat message.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Again gone.
And Mr. Ravindran, he was silent all throughout.
Sir, whatever I wanted to say, Krishnanand had already said. In fact,
Oh, I see.
honestly speaking, your own orders allowing appeal for the previous period, you did not want to follow that and you wanted to have the facts on record.
Because you see, when a case comes up before me, I always stay fresh.
Yes.
I forget the past. Then I will be a new person and the new case before me, even though the parties may be the same, it is a new case. It comes up as a new case, a fresh case before me. I completely forget everything about this particular party in the past is actually going into oblivion.
Absolutely.
That's the
In fact, I was one who appeared for India Cement for most time, and number of occasions I have appeared. My success rate was almost 99%, but still
I see.
there was always some kind of fear, because first you would psychologically you will bulldoze people. That was one. Once we get over that shock, I think we are through, because we are sure about your being very judicious and you will never go beyond the boundaries of law. We are very, very sure about it.
No,
And
I
we
have
had
never-
excellent time, sir. In fact, maybe the caste list was never getting over. You will never compromise on completing a particular matter unless it is heard well. And such a principle you always maintain. In fact, there were days when you sat even beyond the office hours for court time, and you were very kind to Chennai bench. And I would certainly And we have seen you to be a totally different person in the party that we gave. we were all in nice mood at that time. We still cherish all that.
No, I can tell you, I had varied experience in various places, and I worked in 4 stations, including Chennai, and the most lovable and affable company was in Chennai.
Absolutely,
And,
sir.
and also, I can tell you one more thing. This pandemic season, I have started writing my memoirs.
Oh.
And I think my experience will find its way into black and white.
Absolutely, sir.
Sometime. So I am praying for prolonging the pandemic so that I can finish the job.
What about your passion for farming, sir?
Yeah, farming is okay. I used to go once in a week there. I have a passion for farming.